Hey guys, this is Melissa with Fishtales. I wanted to share a painting tutorial with you today. I've had a few people kind of ask if I would show how I'm painting with acrylics on my Bible pages. So first what I did is I drew my image with a pencil real light. This is my favorite pencil. I use a mechanical pencil. This is a Graph Gear 500, but any mechanical pencil or pencil, it doesn't matter. That's just my favorite. And once I get it drawn out, then I go back over it with a colored pencil. I usually use a Prismacolor, but I'm kind of out of them right now. So I think this is just a Crayola black colored pencil. So the colors I've picked out today are Salmon by Delta Creative, Caribbean Blue, Turquoise by Anita's, Peony Pink by Americana, Tree Frog by Delta Creative, and Antique Gold by Anita's. And so what I do is I just kind of put a little drop. Actually, I've probably put more on here than I actually need. But I put a little drop on my palette so I'm ready to go when I'm painting. I don't, I have to stop if I'm working with wet paint. So, next thing is I'll get my paintbrush wet. And I'm going to start by just getting my entire page just lightly damp, and that's going to help the paint kind of move across the page. And as you can see, I've put a sheet of paper back behind here just to protect the rest of my Bible pages and to keep the paint from moving other places I don't want it to. Okay, so once I've got a thin coat of water, a real light coat of water on my page, I'm going to paint my background first. So I think I'm going to do something different this time. I may take some of, I had some gray too. This is medium gray by Folk Art. So I'm going to put a little water in my gray. And I actually may lighten that up a little bit. I'll put some white over here. So I'm going to do a light wash of gray. Just feel like doing something different today. And if you kind of get over where those pencil lines are, it's not a big deal. Because as you paint, you can go back over that. And this paint, it's not covering like I would like it to, but we're going to go with it. I may come back in here since I'm not loving how that looks, and I may just do a real light wash of white, kind of lighten that up. As you can see, I'm not real precise about how I'm getting the paint on the page. This is more of just kind of fun for me, so I try not to overly stress about it. Okay, then I'm going to come back with that Caribbean blue color. I'm just going to go around the edges, kind of add a pop of color. I'm getting some more water on my brush to kind of move that blue around and pull it into my gray. And go back in and get some more blue and come around these edges. For some reason I like to put a darker color around my edges. I guess it kind of frames my page out a little more. And get up here. I'm trying not to get the back side of that page. Okay. I'm going to take a little bit of this darker turquoise color. I may just kind of hit some spots around the edges. Oh, my edge folded up there. And I can, after this dries, I can always go back and kind of darken up where I want to darken. And, you know, you always start light. You can always go darker, but you can't lighten the page back up. So, you know, if you're ever not quite sure about something, just stop, let it dry, see what it looks like when it dries, and then start again. Alright, so I'm going to start with my flower while that dries, and we'll see if it can dry while I'm working on this. So I've gotten a smaller paintbrush, and I'm going to paint the center. I'm going to do the antique gold, and I may, starting out, I may add a little bit of white to the antique gold to kind of lighten it up. Alright, there's my thin coat of yellow. And so I'll go back with a little bit of darker shade of it and just kind of hit these shadow places to kind of make it pop a little bit more. Okay, so I think I'm going to do my flower, this salmon color and peony pink and a little bit of white. So I'll get my salmon color and put some water with it. And I might actually kind of put some water, a little bit on the petals before I start, just so the paint moves a little easier on my page. Now I'm not drenching my page, I'm just putting a real thin coat of water on there. So I'm going to get my color. Actually, I may mix a little bit of white. Like I said, it's easier to go darker, so I usually start light and work up from there. And this flower is just you know, an image that I saw on Pinterest, and then I just freehanded on here the best that I could. I'm trying to practice on my flowers a little more lately. It's not a strong suit of mine, along with lettering. And pull that color over there and sometimes I'll put the paint on the page and then I'll go and just kind of get a little bit of water on my brush and kind of move that paint around This is different for me because usually I'm listening to some music. So listening to myself talk it's wild. It's crazy. Okay, and now that I've got a thin coat of my salmon color on there, now I'll kind of go back and I'll kind of touch it up with the darker colors, and to do the shading and the highlights. And so I'll come back in here, and I think I'll put a little darker pop right there. A little darker color right there. Where this leaf folds, this petal folds over right there, I'll kind of darken it up. Maybe a little bit right there on the edge. A little bit up under here. Anywhere where your petal kind of folds under another one is usually a good place to kind of darken it up. Get a bit of that water on my brush again. And I can keep working, see where the blue came over. That's not a big deal. I can always go back and keep adding color there as it dries and fill that in. Alright. Got a little too much paint on my brush that time, so I went back and kind of washed some of it off and got some water. So okay, now I may go back with just some of this peony pink, and it's a little bit darker, and just put little touches of it to make it pop even more. And some of this is not, it's not necessary. This is just kind of how I paint. And keep in mind, I have been painting for quite a while, so don't get discouraged if you pick up a paintbrush and it doesn't go like you want it the first time. It's really a process of just keep practicing and practicing, and believe me, there's many times my husband has walked in here and said, okay, you've got to stop and come in here and hang out with the family, because this is a passion of mine to sit and just paint and work on things. So alright, now that I've kind of gotten this darker color in here, I'm going to go back with a little bit of white, get my white on my brush, and then I'm going to just hit my highlights with this. And like I said, this is pretty detailed, little tutorial. You could just fill the flower in with color and it would still be just as beautiful. So get a little water on my brush, and I can blend that white down a little bit more. Alright, while that's kind of drying, I'm going to get some green. And again, I may add a little white to it. As you can tell, I'm not I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to my paint palette. It's just wherever it goes on there, it goes. So I'm start filling this green in for the stem. And I'm not being real exact about getting it inside the line, sorry. It'll all look good when it's done, so it'll be fine. Alright, I'm going to go down here and start putting some green on this leaf. And if you're worried about covering up the words, which sometimes my hand gets a little heavy with the paint, depends on the piece that I'm doing, but you can paint in your Bible and not cover the words up. You just have to be a little bit more light-handed and careful about, not getting that paint as thick. Because you can see, I'm going over it and you can still read it. And I can go back with a little bit of that darker green. Kind of put some down here. Maybe get some water on my brush. Now I'll go back with some white and just highlight a few little spots. Get a little water on my brush. Kind of got dry. Now I will have to tell you about white paint. It will cover up your words a lot easier than the other colors. So just be sparing with it, I guess, if you're trying not to cover them up. I'm trying to go fast just because I know that you don't want an hour-long tutorial. So, alright, so now that I've got the paint on everything, and as this dries, and see, for some reason, I guess that paint is kind of junky. It may be old. I could go back in and kind of darken this color up if I wanted to, and I may do that. I may get a bigger paintbrush and do that real quick. Maybe I'll just lighten this aqua up a little bit. I like that gray, but it's kind of, you see a lot of brush marks, and try to cover that up a little bit. Like I said, you can always keep adding real lightly, but once it's on there, you can't always take that paint away, so just work from light to dark. So I like that a little bit better. I may come back and put a little bit more white right here. And I try not to overwork my page. And it is really good, like I said, to you know, let these real thin layers dry for a few minutes, and then you can go back and it, you know, you can work the paint on there again. Let me do a little bit darker, some touches down here. And I can sit here and keep fussing with it, and I think that's the fun part, is you can keep going and keep going. So once this dries, I can go back and outline my image again with the black colored pencil and make my image pop off the page. I like this design because, you know, I've just kind of brought the flower up the side of the page, so I've left room here if I want to, you know, reference some verses for myself later. You know, I have left places to journal. I guess that's what's kind of fun about these, you know, these extra pages in your Bible, like in the concordance or, you know, anywhere in the front or the back. You know, you can test things, you can try things out, different techniques, if you're not sure about stamping or painting, or, you know, what's going to bleed through with your pens, or if something's going to show through on the back. So that's what's great about these pages, is that, you know, you can test try. I mean, it's still fun and they can still be beautiful, but, you know, you don't have to worry about messing up a page that you're really, really hoping that it's going to come out the way that you want it to. So once this dries, like I said, I would go back over it with colored pencil. Another thing that I like to do is do a little bit of the paint splatter. So sometimes I will, if I don't want my image to get the paint splatter on it, I'll just take some Post-it notes and kind of cover up. Like, I don't want my flower to get paint splatter on it. I could do the leaf, cover that leaf up a little bit. And so what you would do is you take some water on your brush. I like to use white a lot. You can use any color that you want to. And I get that water in that paint, mix it up, and now you can see that brush is pretty saturated. So I'm going to take 2 paint brushes, and you're just going to tap the brush that has your paint on it. You're going to tap that against the other one. So here we go. You can cover this other page up if you're particular about not getting it on there. And just make sure that you're somewhere that if that paint splatters, it's not going to ruin anything, because it does travel. And I may move this down just a little bit so I can get my edge up here. Fold that down. And a lot of people are worried about the page wrinkling. I can tell you one thing that I have found is if I will put a light wash of paint over the entire page, not just part of it. If I'll do an entire wash, I have better results about the page not wrinkling as bad. But like if I just paint around the edge of the page, my page seems to buckle more. And I don't like the way that looks. So I've been trying to do more of, even if it's a lighter color, I just put a light wash of color over the entire page. And once this dries and I get it exactly how I want it, and you close this Bible up, it really does flatten out. These edges will flatten Now it's not perfect. It's not going to lay flat like it did before exactly, but you know, I've been really pleased with how you know, it does flatten out once you've closed your Bible up and stuff. So that is it, I guess, for today. I can't go back right now with the colored pencil because my page is wet. Just make sure that that page is completely dry before you go back in and outline anything with pencil or pen, because you don't want to rip the page. You don't want your ink to smear, you know, anything like that. So just try to be patient. A lot of times I'll use a blow dryer, but you don't want to listen to that. But I'll use a blow dryer and I'll, you know, dry the page out if I'm in a hurry, and then I'll go back over it. So, you know, if y'all have any questions, drop me a line. If there's something that you'd like to see in a tutorial, I'll try to do it. So I hope you've enjoyed it and can't wait to see what you do. Thanks, guys.